One stone in South Africa didn't just make people rich, it rewired the entire idea of value. In 1869, a young boy in South Africa picked up a strange looking stone from the ground. At first, nobody thought much of it, but that stone turned out to be a diamond. And once word got out, everything changed. And within years, thousands of people flooded into South Africa. Farmers, labourers, dreamers, all digging, all searching, all hoping to strike it rich. Diamonds were coming out the ground in huge numbers. And that was a problem, because when something suddenly becomes easy to find, it stops feeling special. Diamonds weren't rare anymore, and they were becoming common. And if diamonds become common, their value would collapse. This is the part most people never hear. The biggest threat to the diamond industry wasn't theft, it wasn't competition, it was too many diamonds. Supply was exploding and prices were under pressure. And without control, diamonds would end up like all the other rocks, valuable only to those who actually loved the look of them. So very early on, a new idea took hold. If you couldn't stop diamonds being found, you had to control what happened after they were found. Who bought them, who sold them, and crucially, how many reached the public. That was the moment diamonds stopped being just stones in the dirt and started becoming something carefully managed. And standing right at the centre of that shift was one man who realised that the real power wasn't in digging diamonds, it was in owning the ground beneath everyone else. That's where this story really begins. Most people chase diamonds, but one man chased the land beneath them. While thousands were digging holes, one man stood back and watched. His name was Cecil Rhodes. Now Rhodes wasn't the best miner, and he wasn't the hardest worker, but he understood something most people didn't. If you own the diamond, you get lucky once. If you own the ground, you win forever. So instead of digging, Rhodes started buying claims, land, competing mines, one by one. When miners run out of money, he bought them out. When rivals tried to compete, he absorbed them. While prices fell, he waited, then bought cheaper. And by the 1880s, something extraordinary had happened. Hundreds of separate diamond mines had quietly merged into one, and that company had a name, and it was De Beers. This wasn't just a mining company, it was like a gatekeeper, because once De Beers controlled the land, it controlled the flow. And if you control the flow, you can control the price. Diamonds stopped being sold freely, they were released slowly, carefully, and on purpose. Too many stones, you hold them back. Demand dropping restricts supply. If the price started to wobble, you close the tap. This was the birth of something completely new. It wasn't a business, not a brand, but a system designed to make diamonds feel rare, even when they weren't. And here's the important bit. De Beers didn't just dominate South Africa, it quietly became the centre of the entire global diamond trade. And if you wanted to sell diamonds, you had to go through them. And if you didn't, you struggled to survive. By the end of the 19th century, diamonds were no longer ruled by geography, they were ruled by strategy. And the real difference wasn't underground anymore, it was in a control room. Now this wasn't a diamond company anymore, it was a global chokehold. By the 1900s, De Beers had pulled off something almost unheard of. They didn't just mine diamonds, they controlled who actually would sell them. And at the centre of it all was a single system, the Central Selling Organisation. Now here's how it worked. Diamonds from all over the world, like Africa, Russia, anywhere, were funneled into one place. De Beers decided how many stones hit the market, who got them and at what price. If you played along, you made money. If you didn't, you were frozen out. Flood the market, prices crash, hold supply back, prices rise. So De Beers did what no one had done before. They stockpiled diamonds by the ton, locked them away in vaults, sometimes for years. Not because they couldn't sell them, but because selling them too fast would destroy the illusion. And that illusion was everything, because here's the truth most people don't realise. Diamonds are not rare. They're one of the most plentiful gemstones on earth. What made them expensive wasn't scarcity, it was discipline. and De Beers enforced that discipline globally. By the mid-20th century, they controlled about 80 to 90% of the world diamond supply. That's not competition, that's a cartel. Prices wasn't discovered in the market, they were decided in boardrooms, and it worked. Diamonds became stable, predictable and expensive. Now, to the outside world, it looked like natural value, but behind the scenes, it was pure control. And here's the problem with control like this. You can manage supply and you can manage price, but you can't control what people feel about a product forever. And that's when De Beers realised something terrifying. Even with total supply control, people still didn't want diamonds enough. So they did something far more powerful than controlling stones. They decided to control love itself. Diamonds didn't become valuable because they were rare. They became valuable because someone taught the world how to feel. By the 1930s, De Beers had a problem. They controlled the supply and they controlled the price, but people still weren't buying diamonds like they needed to buy them. The Great Depression had crushed luxury spending. Engagement rings weren't a given. Diamonds were optional, and that scared them. So De Beers did something no mining company had ever done before. They stopped selling diamonds and started selling meaning. They hired an advertising agency and gave them one job: make diamonds essential. Not nice, not fashionable, but essential. And in 1947, a copywriter named Francis Geraghty wrote 4 words that would quietly rewire the world: a diamond is forever. Those words did something genius. They linked diamonds to love and to commitment. That is expensive, but this is what serious love looks like. They pushed the idea that a diamond wasn't just a stone, it was proof. Proof you were committed, proof you were a proper man, and proof your relationship mattered. And here's the cleverest part of all. They didn't just make people want diamonds, they made sure diamonds were never resold, because if a diamond is forever, you don't trade that in. You don't question the price, you don't compare value, you just buy it. And even Hollywood joined in, magazines followed, jewelers repeated the story. Within a generation, something unbelievable happened. A product that once was optional became expected. Proposals without diamonds felt wrong. Cheap diamonds felt insulting. Prices soared, not because diamonds changed, but because people's perception did. And De Beers didn't just win the market, they embedded themselves into culture. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Once value is built on story, not substance, all it takes is a better story to pull the whole thing apart. And that story was already forming quietly in laboratories. Now, behind every polished diamond, there was a side of the story no one was meant to look at. By the time De Beers had convinced the world that diamonds meant love, they were pulling stones out of the ground at an industrial scale. And that ground was mostly in Africa, South Africa, Botswana. It looked like progress, but in reality it was brutal. Migrant labour systems, men separated from families for months or years, workers living in controlled compounds, strict surveillance, low pay and little power. Diamonds were being sold as symbols of romance in the West, while the people mining them lived under conditions most buyers never imagined. Then came something even darker: conflict diamonds, stones mined in war zones and sold to fund weapons, militaries and civil wars. Diamonds become currency for violence. Now, De Beers would later say they didn't acknowledge any of that. They didn't sell blood diamonds. That's partly true, but once you control global supply, you buy diamonds in bulk from multiple regions, the system itself becomes a problem. Stones change hands dozens of the time, origins blurred, paperwork followed money, not truth. Public pressure exploded in the 1990s. Documentaries, investigations, films like Blood Diamond forced people to ask uncomfortable questions. How could something sold as forever be tied to suffering? The industry responded with Kimberley Process. A certification system meant stock conflict diamonds entering the market. Now, on the surface, it looked like a fix, but in practice it relied on governments policing themselves. It ignored labour conditions, it didn't cover environmental damage, and plenty of stones still slipped through. And for the first time in a century, the diamond industry wasn't just admired, it was questioned. And once that trust cracks, control weakens. That matters, because when people start doubting the ethics, they also start questioning the price. And that's exactly the moment a new kind of diamond began to look very dangerous. Then something appeared that wasn't dug out of ground, and the entire diamond industry panicked. For over 100 years, the diamond world run on unspoken rule. If it didn't come from the earth, it didn't count. That rule kept prices high, kept control tight, and kept the story clean. But behind the scenes, scientists have been quietly working on something awkward. They weren't trying to make fake diamonds, they were trying to make real ones, and they succeeded. The lab-grown diamonds aren't imitation, they aren't stimulants, they're not copies, they're diamonds. Same carbon structure, same hardness, and same sparkle. Atom for atom, the same material. The only difference, one forms underground over billions of years, the other forms in a lab in a matter of weeks. And here's the part that made the industry uncomfortable. Even trained jewelers can't tell the difference by eye. Not with a loupe, not with experience. You need specialist machines to see the growth patterns. And at first, the industry laughed it off. They're industrial, they're niche. No one will want them, but buyers didn't listen, because lab-grown diamonds solved three problems at once: ethics, transparency, and price. Suddenly, couples realised they could get a diamond 2 or 3 times bigger for the same budget, with clear origin, without the uncomfortable questions. That wasn't a small shift, that was an earthquake, because when the product is the same and the story changes, the old pricing model starts to look fragile, and De Beers knew it. You don't control a market for centuries without recognising a real threat. So instead of fighting lab-grown diamonds, they tried something far more dangerous. They joined them. Now, when De Beers realised lab-grown diamonds weren't going away, they didn't fight them, they tried to own them. This is the bit most people don't know. For over 100 years, De Beers' power came from one thing: control and supply. So when lab-grown diamonds started gaining traction, they faced a nightmare. You can't control a mine you don't own, and you definitely can't control a product anyone can grow in a lab. So they did something clever and very controversial. They launched their own lab-grown brand, Lightbox. But here's the twist: they didn't market them like engagement ring diamonds, they priced them cheap. Flat pricing, no rarity, no romance, almost like they were saying, these are fun, fashion, disposable. The message was subtle but very brutal. Natural diamonds equals forever, lab grown equals costume jewellery. It wasn't about competing, it was about controlling the narrative. If De Beers could frame lab grown diamonds as low value, they could protect the premium pricing of mined stones. But the market didn't behave how they expected. Customers didn't see cheap, they saw honest. They saw clarity and they saw value. They saw choice. And once people understand that lab-grown diamond is still a diamond, the psychology wall started to crack. Even worse for De Beers, other jewellers didn't follow their script. They sold lab-grown diamonds as engagement rings, as heirloom pieces, and as serious jewellery, and buyers loved it. The result, lab-grown prices kept falling, natural diamond prices came under pressure, and Lightbox quietly became a problem instead of a solution. Eventually, De Beers had to pull back, scale it down, and change direction, because they had accidentally done one thing they never wanted to do. They confirmed to the world that lab-grown diamonds were real enough to be dangerous. And once that genie is out the bottle, you can't put it back in. Now, for the first time in decades, diamond prices aren't decided by romance. They're decided by maths. This is where things start to unravel. For years, the diamond industry worked on a simple illusion. Diamonds go up because they're rare. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Diamonds were never priced like gold. They were priced like belief. If belief stayed strong, prices stayed high. If belief cracked, everything followed. Lab-grown diamonds didn't just offer cheap options, they exposed how fragile the pricing model really was. Because once a customer sees this, 2 diamonds, same sparkle, same hardness, same chemical structure and same certificate, but one costs 30 to 70% less, a question appears that never existed before. Why am I paying more? And once that question is asked, it doesn't go away. Here's a bit jewelers don't like admitting. Neither mined nor lab-grown diamonds are investments. They both lose value the moment you walk out the door. The resale percentage are almost identical. So when the industry tries to argue natural diamonds hold their value better, the numbers don't back it up. What actually happened was customers started relocating their budgets. Instead of spending £5,000 on a smaller stone, they spent £5,000 on a much bigger one. Same spend, same presence, more impact. That terrified the old guard, because when people stop chasing 1 carat as a status symbol, the entire ladder collapses. Jewelers felt it, dealers felt it, and the miners felt it. Margins tightened, stock sat longer, prices softened. And for the first time in modern history, the diamond industry couldn't simply turn a tap off to fix it. Because you can't restrict supply when supply is a machine. And once buyers understand that, the power shifts, and it shifts fast. The real question now isn't, are lab-grown diamonds real? It's this: how long can an industry survive once the spell is broken? Now, when diamonds fell apart, it's not billionaires who feel it first. It's the people at the bottom. People don't really understand because it gets messy and it doesn't fit on a billboard. When lab-grown diamonds took off, the headlines focus on price, ethics and choice. But behind the scenes, something else started happening. Entire supply chains began to wobble. Small independent jewelers, the ones who had built their businesses around natural diamonds, suddenly found themselves stuck with stock they couldn't move. Stones bought at yesterday prices, customers shopping with today's knowledge. Margins vanished overnight. Then came the mines. Natural diamond mining isn't a quick tap you turn off. It's a long-term contracts, huge fixed cost, and communities built around a single industry. When demand slows, it's not executives who lose work, it's the cutters, it's the polishers, security staff, entire towns. And here's the uncomfortable irony. For years, the industry said lab-grown diamonds would destroy jobs, but the truth is it wasn't lab-grown that created the risk. It was overpricing a product and pretending it was rare forever. Because once consumers realised they've been paying a premium for perception, not substance, they don't just adjust, they pull back. And at the same time, jewelers like me were put in a very impossible position. Tell customers the truth or protect an old system that no longer made sense. After 35 years in this trade, I can tell you something honestly. This isn't good versus bad. It's not natural versus lab grown. And it's not about taking sides. It's about adaptation. The jewelers who survive are the ones who educate, not manipulate. The ones who explain options instead of steering decisions. The ones who accept that trust now matters more than tradition, because once trust is lost, it doesn't come back. And that leads us to the final question, not about diamonds, but about who wins next. The real question isn't natural or lab grown, it's whether you're buying with facts or with feelings someone else has sold you. And here's where we land. Now, after 150 years of control, diamonds are no longer ruled by one company, one story or one price. For the first time ever, buyers are in charge. Natural diamonds still exist, they're still beautiful, but for some people, they always matter emotionally. But they're no longer rare, they're no longer protected, they're no longer guaranteed to hold value. Lab-grown diamonds have changed that permanently. Atom for atom, they're the same. They sparkle the same, they wear the same. And over time, both lose value at the same rate. That's the part nobody likes saying out loud. Diamonds are not an investment, they're an emotional purchase. So if you're choosing a diamond today, the smartest move isn't chasing resale value or old marketing lines. It's asking, what do I actually want? Do I want size, clarity and design, or do I want tradition and history? Neither answer is wrong. What's wrong is being pushed into a decision without the full picture. Now, after 35 years in this trade, I can tell you this. Nothing, and I mean nothing, has disrupted the diamond industry like lab-grown diamonds. Not wars, not recession, and not technology. And that disruption isn't a threat, it's freedom. So if you're thinking about an engagement ring, an upgrade, or something truly bespoke, you can book a free consultation with me or one of my team. There's no pressure, no sales script, and we'll show you both lab-grown and mined diamonds. We'll explain the real difference and help you choose what's right for you. If you want to go deeper, you can download my free diamond guide below, and it breaks all this down clearly, simply and honestly. I'm James of Blackwall Jewelers. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to our channel.